From the Dyckman Farmhouse Museum in the heart of Inwood, New York City, welcome to Inwood Artworks On Air. It's where we meet the musicians, filmmakers, writers, theater makers, and artists of all stripes who make their home in what we affectionately call Upstate Manhattan. I'm your host, Aaron Sims, and today we are turning our local artist spotlight on theatrical wardrobe professional Laurel Parrish. Laurel graduated from the University of California at Santa Barbara and is a proud member of IATSE Local 764, the theatrical wardrobe union in New York City. Her career has spanned many companies and venues, from the Juilliard School to Ringling Brothers to Baryshnikov's White Oak Dance Project. She's been with the Broadway musical Wicked since it opened in 2003, first as a principal dresser and then as the Glinda dresser for many years. Currently, she holds several positions at Wicked, including managing the costume stock, and acting as the advanced wardrobe supervisor on the Wicked National Tour. We're going to talk about her work and so much more, but Laurel, first, welcome to Inwood Artworks On Air.
Awesome. Thank you so much for having me, Aaron.
Sure thing. It's really good to see you in person.
Right?
I used to see you at events all the time. and
in passing at the
And
store.
now I feel like I only see you on Twitter. Or wherever you may lapse around the social world, because it's just hard to find people these days in person.
My Twitter is currently a curated screed of support the arts, but
I think it's
gotten some attention, so hey.
Well, that's a great thing. I think the screams are needing to be heard.
Yeah.
And the arts always need to be supported, and who better to support artists than artists themselves?
Yeah.
Well, I can't believe, but we're recording this at a time where we now just eclipsed a year since Broadway, off-Broadway, live performances in general have been shut down by civil authority. It just sounds like we're in our own kind of like medieval play.
Yeah.
Are you, I'm just curious how you're doing. How are you hanging in there? Because you are one of the thousands who were suddenly left without a job a year ago. And to put it bluntly, how have you made it through the year?
Yesterday was one of those, trauma anniversaries are always hard. And yesterday I was in Madison, Wisconsin with the tour on the day the shutdown happened. And we were in the middle of a matinee. We had two shows that Thursday. We're texting furiously back and forth because it was like a rolling tide. Somebody said it was like the Dementors were hanging over us this week. I was like, yeah, you could feel it coming. In the afternoon, in the middle of our matinee, Cuomo, the minute he limited group gatherings, we knew that was it. That was us. So I'm getting texts from everybody at day work and in rehearsal at the theater in New York, sending pictures of the costumes all draped in fabric and everyone. And we were still doing our show. And we did our evening show. And Wisconsin hadn't shut anything down. It was, state by state. They had sort of classes maybe ended a little early. It was spring break. They were going to spring break anyway, but they hadn't really done a ton of the limiting things that were happening at that point. And so we did our evening show, and again, this is like yesterday, that tide of Facebook posts that everybody had. Everybody remembers we got applause when the curtain came up, and that never happens in our show. It's just not a moment in our show that is applause worthy, or it's not staged for that. It's it's not that thing, but the curtain came up and the audience applauded and we were all back, and it was just like, oh, they know, we know. It's just, and we didn't know it would be our last show, but it was. And I actually, there was a talk back that night, and the audience was super supportive. And then the next day, I kind of went, we all sort of went around our usual Friday, and about 6:00 we got the notice, company meeting, and that Wisconsin had shut stuff down. So we sort of scrambled to get home. And I, at least as the advanced wardrobe supervisor, I only go out for a week. I go out for the first week. So I'm not a tour full time.
Right.
But there are people on tour that don't have homes.
Yep.
That just had to scramble to get to some kind of home base or find an Airbnb. So I came home, and it's just been this we thought it would be a month, and that was weird. And I thought maybe I could do some office work because I have an office job too. What was I thinking? And they were like, no, we're not paying. We can't pay anybody. You're not leaving your house, and also we don't have money to pay anyone. So yeah, it's that moment of, we thought it would be a month. So you look at your savings and you're like, okay, this is maybe doable. And then we all kind of knew before, the press statements went out, closure by closure. Originally it was May, and then it was like August, September, but we kind of knew, so we're like, okay, it's going to be the fall. And then there was a point when the tour was going to come back in December. And when they pushed ticket sales to May, I think that was like the biggest, longest, like 6 months away. And that was the really big one. And even at that point, we knew it was like, this is just a numbers thing, and they have to make the statement, but it's really not going to be till the fall at the earliest. So it was just like, you're looking at like how am I going to make it through in these chunks of, okay, a month, okay, 6 weeks. Oh shit. I am one of the fortunate ones whose unemployment claim went through without a hitch.
Wow, good for you.
First couple days, I think, because we knew right away, everything shut down so suddenly, like there was no work, that I feel like theater workers, Broadway workers in particular, were that very first, that like March 14th or whatever that Monday was, like we were on it right away. And it was like the following week that the restaurant workers and the other entertainment workers really flooded the system. And I only had one job, so I didn't have a lot of complications to my claim. And I've had so number one, how I've made it through savings. Number two, how I made it through unemployment, which thankfully has been relatively painless. And number three, I mean, I cashed out. I took a big 401k withdrawal. I wanted that money just sitting there for security. And I'm glad I had the option of that. It was a financially feasible thing for me to do, and it's not going to hurt me too much in the long run. So financially, once I got my financial ducks in a row, it sort of made how am I going to get through this a little easier. It hasn't actually made any of the trauma and depression and stress easier, but it was just like, it wasn't a thing I just felt like I was going to have to scramble every day. I made a lot of masks. I gave them away and I sold them. And it's really fun because I sold them at Inwood Gourmet, a little store in our neighborhood where I am now working and selling cheese. But selling them in the neighborhood has been really fun because I see them in the wild. I saw someone like at the store, out on the street at the farmer's market earlier with one that I knew was mine. So that's been fun. We're such a hyper local little neighborhood.
Sure.
So selling it at a local store like that, I see them out in the wild all the time. And that's been a really cool thing.
That's fun.
But yeah, it's really been just like a chunk of time to chunk of time to chunk of time. And, people have left, people have like done other things. I just didn't have the wherewithal. I didn't have anywhere to go. I mean, this is home. Didn't really have the desire or the means to like suddenly start a new career. So I've just been sort of like scrambling, doing some freelance projects, trying to keep more within what I normally do than going completely outside of it and doing, selling real estate or whatever other people have landed in, which is so amazing. People have done these amazing pivots, and it's incredible to see.
Wardrobe is a job that requires the utmost intimacy. So regardless of what industry you're in, wardrobe and theater, despite the hope that we are all vaccinated by the time we all return to producing theater again, how do you think life backstage is going to change? And, kind of adding that too, as I think about it, what steps do you hope to see taken by, we'll just say, people themselves, forget unions and producers. It's like, people themselves, because to make working conditions safe and feasible.
I mean, I've been through endless like Zoom.
Yeah.
I have my OSHA 10 training now, and we've, you probably know this too. There have been endless
COVID compliance officer training and stuff like that.
And the thing is,
that's all fine.
I mean, as far as I'm concerned, the pivot, especially last summer, and we'll see what this summer brings, that people have done to outdoor performances and adapting has been amazing. Nuts and bolts, you can't do what I do without people being vaccinated. And that's the thing. Like we knew we've had conversations early on about, everyone's going to wear a mask until they go on stage. It was like, not my show. They're not. Like, no, that's just, it can't happen that way. I mean, I think the backstage may be stripped down in terms of personal items and just having more space to maneuver. But even, the hygiene theater about cleaning surfaces, not that it's not an important thing and is a thing that should always be done, is not what drives this virus. As we know from what happened in the first weeks of COVID, when so many Broadway companies were devastated, because when you sing in each other's face, that's how you
Moulin Rouge was the first company to really get nailed
Moulin
openly.
Rouge. Our company was actually only a few people in my company at the time, even.
At least they were aware they had it, right?
That knew it. Yeah. At the time, early on, there was one company member that was diagnosed that I know of. I think some house people, but I mean, there were Moulin Rouge, Come From Away, Jagged Little Pill, all were, had really. Yeah, we were quite lucky for whatever reason. But there were companies, because it's like, oh yeah, I guess that is. And it was before, at that point, I remember just being sort of not confused. I was like, wow, I wonder if there's something specific about singers being affected, because at the time they were still telling us to like wash your hands a lot. And they weren't talking about it being airborne or admitting that it was airborne. So we weren't understanding that, oh no, literally what you do is what can harm you. So yeah, I don't think large scale shows like mine can really come back until everyone is vaccinated or immune, or a percentage of us are. I won't feel safe going back to work until I am. I know that. Especially on tour, because we work with strangers that you can't contain. You can't bubble. You can't do what the NBA did. So I think things will change in terms of the awareness, and I hope, just because we've all been through so much, there just a sort of, I would love to see a kinder, gentler in general vibe. Not that it's ever a bad vibe, but there's, especially in a long running show, you get very comfortable and you get very laid back and things, it just, I think if we all take more care for each other, that's honestly the biggest thing that I kind of hope happens, because I don't think we can make physical changes to what we do. I really don't.
Yeah. I mean, for those who don't know how intimate could it get backstage, just from the wardrobe perspective, you're literally pulling sweaty garments off someone else.
Yeah,
it's
and
not
holding
it's
their
not like
water.
it's not like you can say, I'm sorry, I can't touch you. Can you put it in the basket over there? Usually, sometimes there's just not time.
Yeah, I mean, I think there may be instances, and again, this is like, they're finding that that's not a major, even though people are still very, how do we quarantine the clothes? I feel like that's not, it really is the airborne thing. But I think that just as a general safety thing, I think there may be adjustments to quick changes where the actors do more of the work, do more getting themselves out. There may be adjustments to things, and then a dresser steps in. It's entirely possible that dressers will work with masks and shields the whole time. I mean, bite lights, thank God, I think will be a thing of the past, because I hate them anyway.
Oh my God, I know.
And they're super unsanitary, so that would be fine. I think there's going to be, and it's more environmentally friendly if we do like battery or rechargeable headlamps or neck lamps or whatever. I mean, there are options that are perfectly usable.
But at the end of the day, it's about being in the same room with people. Yeah,
I mean, at the end of the day, it's about making sure that the theaters are ventilated properly and that things are cleaned properly, and that, I can't even imagine what a testing regime looks like, because even that's, not taking temperatures at the doors is hygiene theater. I mean, there's still so much that people that I think that is being discussed that won't hurt necessarily, but in my inexpert opinion, isn't really what solves it. What solves it is herd immunity.
Yeah,
at least for a large scale show like mine.
When you look back to the era of James the First, they just closed everything and just said, don't even think about it. You'll when it's done, we'll open them again. Because I think there is the granted, we have science and technology, it's quite advanced since that time, we'll hope. But yeah, I mean, unless everyone's safe, no one's safe, right?
Yeah. And we've been like, and I think that's, there have certainly been, I know over the past year, everyone wants to get back to work. Our producers, all the workers, everyone are working towards the goal. All the politicians, like, we all want to be back to work. But I think, no one's going to put, I do have faith that we won't be intentionally put in a position that is unsafe. Yeah. I mean, I think we're still learning things, and there may be choices made that might need to be, changed. But, I think what it really comes down to, I think, this last week they're talking about the fall, and I feel cautiously optimistic that is going to happen. So.
Well, and I think your job, having spoken to a lot of other GMs, I feel like the road's going to come back before Broadway does.
That's what I'm hearing too, which I don't. Yeah, and that has to do with because those theater, because they can't and won't come back at a lower capacity. Like they just can't. And Broadway relies on tourism. So the Broadway capacity, those houses rely on people coming in from out of town. And road houses more rely on subscription base, like they have a built-in. Those are butts and seats that already have paid for those tickets. And thankfully, a lot of people, like when this all started, they're like, here's my money for whenever you come back. I will buy that season when in 2021, 2022, whatever it is. And that has kept a lot of those afloat. That makes me nervous, but we'll see. Just because they're in states that have, because it's so state by state, and as a person from New York, I come in and out and dealing with people, intimately training strangers, what I mean? So I think that is the thought and the idea. And I'm super fortunate to be at a show that will be, the good thing about being at Wicked is that we're one of like the big, we'll come back. We're one of the bigger, longer running shows that has more of a solid grounding. So
you have a great brand.
Yeah, we have a good brand, exactly.
But you got a great boss, Alice Gilbert.
I know, she's amazing.
Kevin's
She's
there.
fully vaccinated.
Good.
Got that email this week. So.
I love Alice.
Yeah,
that's great to hear.
Yeah.
And Kevin's.
Yep.
Shanaz's still around?
Shanaz's still around, yep.
Fabulous.
Shanaz is there. Yeah, all my good friends. Haven't seen any of them in a year, but
Well, that's the tough part, right?
Yeah, it sucks.
Tough. So can for those of you who are listening who may not know, I'd like for Laurel to just tell you a little bit about what an advanced wardrobe supervisor does. Just because you said she only works a week, that's it? And no, she works consistently going out. And I want to could you tell a little bit what that means?
Sure. So a national tour of a Broadway show. They travel with their own cast, some musicians and their crew. But for the first week of each city, all the departments bring in several extra people to help train the local crew and set everything up. So that's known as the advanced crew. There's an advanced electrician, there are advanced props people, there's advanced carpenters. Every department has an advanced person that works that first week. And so it was a great job. Like I just started a little over a year ago, and it's great because I got to travel, but I didn't actually have to be on the road the whole time. Got to stay here, got to do my New York part of the Broadway part of my job as well. But basically I go out, I fly in, I like 8 a.m. on that first day, we go in, we meet the crew, we load in, we get everything set up and started, and the set has already been up, and they rehearse a little bit in the afternoon, talk people through the notes. I train the alphabet dresser, and I work with her mostly, and then some of the other principal dressers. And literally I walk in the theater at 8 a.m. Theater I've never seen before, crew I've never met before, and that night we do a show, which is still insane to me. Because I come from a Broadway background where it's like we have time to rehearse and we get to really finesse things, and on the road it's like boom boom, and it's so, those crews are amazing. It's been really great for me to learn more about my show and to learn to be work a little bit more on the fly and stuff like that. And that's why I'm only there for I would go out for a week, and sometimes depending on the show schedules, a lot of times the minimum engagement that Wicked will do is 2 weeks. So, and sometimes it's up to 4 to 8 weeks. So there have been times when I go out for a week and they're somewhere for 2 months and I don't see them again for 6 or 7 weeks in the next city. But there are times when there's a bunch of back-to-back 2-weekers where I'm a week in New York, a week on the road, a week in New York, a week on the road, back and forth, back and forth. So it just kind of depends on how, what their schedule is like. And I have no idea what that looks like going forward. I think they're talking about longer sit-down engagement, which is great, which is easier for everyone, frankly. But takes a lot of that part of that job away from me because I won't get to go out there as much and I won't see them, but it's fine. It's all good.
But you're busy here too, doing stuff.
Yeah, I also work in New York. I split half my time at the theater and half my time in our storage space in the garment district. We're at 38th and 8th. We have a big industrial space where we keep all of our stock costumes, and we do all of the fittings for new people there. We do publicity events out of there. Constantly maintaining, fitting, sending stuff out to the road is a big part of it because most of the time, ensemble members in particular will go straight to the road. They won't come to us necessarily first. So a lot of times I'm just working for measurements and packing stuff out.
People don't understand. So thank you for saying all that, because I don't think many people, I'll say, quite realize the preparation that goes into putting a show on the road.
Yeah.
And also in Wicked's case too, it's not the exact same show that's on Broadway.
It's close enough, but yeah,
It's
there's,
close.
and that was another big learning experience for me, just like the little
Yeah.
differences. I actually set up I first encountered and worked with the tour a few years ago before I took the advanced wardrobe job on. We did a production of Wicked in Brazil 5 years ago, 5 years ago now. And I went down and set up, like I worked with the wardrobe crew there. And it was the first time I'd set up an entire production because Alice had always done that in the past.
Hmm.
And she was like, "I'm not doing a 10-hour flight. You can you can go to Brazil." Um, and but the Broadway production is the only one that works like it does. So the tour productions and all of the international productions we've done are more based on what the tour is. So I went out to the tour to learn their setup, and how, and kind of more how they do it. And it's different. It's very different from Broadway, because on Broadway, like, you get to burrow in and really like own your space and constantly tweak how the space works. But when you're on tour, you can't do that because the space changes from week to week. So you can't get complacent in like where your quick changes are, or even where your gondola, where your dressing area is going to be different from week to week. The dressing rooms will change. The distance from the dressing room to the stage will change. The abilities of the crew will change. Mm-hmm. So it's a big lesson in being adaptable.
Do you have any fun, adaptable stories for the road for local show crews?
Honestly, it was most of my stories to this point are about me learning to adapt.
But those are fun
are
too.
About me freaking out because I'm so used to something being in one place and everybody looking at me going, "Calm down, princess. It's okay."
But that's what I'm talking about.
Yeah.
It's not a derogatory thing for the
Yeah.
show. Listen, I'm from Cincinnati. We had plenty of road people. Our local crews were fantastic. It is. I just find it's. You'll lose 5 pounds in a night of water running around. I mean, of pure adrenaline I'm talking about. Yeah. And if you get ahead of yourself, so to speak, and because the people who are locals are so good.
Yeah.
Like, they're so trained and they know each other so well.
Yeah. And we're at the point now with Wicked where we've been through cities enough that often, and again, since I work with the principal dressers, I more often than not will have a dresser that's dressed Alpha before, that knows the track, and it's just a different actress. The notoriously difficult theater to work in, one of the most beautiful, the Fox Theater in Atlanta, is notoriously difficult to work in. It's one of the old movie palaces. It's got no crossover. So you literally have to go downstairs, run through the basement, and go upstairs again. There's no direct path from point A to point B. So it's kind of notorious in that way. And there's elevators, this like wonky elevator that goes up. I got there and I was like, "What is happening?" And everyone else is like, "Yeah, it sucks, but we've done this before." But the Alphabet and the Glinda dresser had both done it like 5 times, and they were both, and they were just like, "No, it's fine. Just follow us. This is how we do it here." And they're great, and it's a real gift to have people that even 5 years later have that muscle memory of doing those quick changes and knowing those clothes and just having to deal with a new actor, but everything else is the same.
Well, when we come back, whenever that is, we have. I mean, it sounds like it's going to be on a rolling basis when things come back. You're a lifer like me in the industry. We'll be there till the end. I'm curious. What are your aspirations for your next steps? Obviously, working is the first aspiration, which is a great thing. But within your industry or beyond, because you said earlier, it's like this is what you do, this is what you're focused on, and Wicked is such a fantastic show. Do you have other aspirations to work on any other shows? Because here's why I asked too. It's like we spoke with Rick Molina not too long ago, who's been working with you for a very long time in guitar.
He's been there since the beginning as well.
And it's like, do you like to swing out to other productions and work on and then come back to Wicked? I'm just curious, like, do we a wardrobe supervisor? So, like, play different roles, so to speak, within your industry to keep things fresh for yourself.
I've been super lucky, and here's the thing: when I say that I have like all these jobs at Wicked, I'm a unicorn. There's no other Broadway show that has what we have and that I've been positioned to be in. So I've been extremely lucky to be able to make all these lateral moves within my show, and not have to like take the risk of leaving. But I mean, right now I can't. Right now I just want to get us like back and up and running because I don't know what that's going to look like.
Of course.
And again, my bosses are always great, and they would always be open to me taking leave to do something else. But then when I started the tour job, that doesn't leave me. Like I can't,
Yeah.
you know what I mean? So it's just, I sort of boxed myself into a little bit of a corner when I took that on, but it was something I really wanted to do. And it's like literally, it's the same show, but totally new challenge. I mean, it still blows me away that we walk into theater at 8 a.m. and do a show at 7. Like,
It's incredible.
It's crazy with people that I've never met before. It is still, and it like the long-term road people. I don't think I would ever want to go on the road full time like they are. I don't. Maybe when I was younger, I toured a lot with dance companies when I was younger, and those were like smaller, more focused. Like,
yeah. Do you
6
miss
to 8
dance?
weeks.
Do you miss because you
I do and I don't. I mean, it's it was great. I did great international travel. I was with the Jose Limon Company for a long time, and we were in some really insane. We were in El Salvador. We did a lot of South America touring. Went to Croatia. Like I miss kind of seat of the pants stuff like that a little bit, but I also like having health insurance and a better salary. Although I don't know what the dance world looks like now. That shouldn't be fair. But I was doing those jobs when I was like 25. So.
Well, I happen to know the other unicorn that had your job, Christina Cocchiara.
Yeah.
And so
Yeah,
I do
very
know
similar.
I do know there's life after it. So that's all I'm saying. And that's what
Yeah.
made me think of who's a wonderful
Yeah.
person. And
One of the last people I saw in person over the summer.
oh, really?
Yeah.
Oh, fantastic. Yeah, she's great. She's out in Queens.
Yeah.
She's still alive. She's doing well.
Yeah.
But I just know that she's gone on to do many great things.
Yeah.
And not that Wicked isn't a great thing in itself. But I was just curious because for being a lifer in the industry, it as Rick also mentioned too in his interview, it's like it's great to have a little bit of diversity at the same time as that you're incredibly grateful for such a great show you're doing, and yeah, loading at a show and putting it up in the same night is enough to keep anybody on their toes.
It's crazy.
It's really crazy and wonderful. Being, I have to say, at the apex of your career, I'll say, working at a great level, even though we're waiting for it to resume performances, which, you said fall of 21, most likely 22 for many of the larger productions, because as you also mentioned before, and I think everyone is in agreement in the theater world, is like, we can't come back unless it's full capacity. It's not economically feasible for us to do that. We have a hard time sometimes selling full houses as it is in the best of times. Wicked happens to be one of these wonderful shows that has had a wonderful history of being a hit show. It's one of those 1 in 5 Broadway shows that have made it. The other 4 do not. So do you have any advice for people who have, let's say, either young people coming out of BFA programs or FIT, or people just in general who are fantastic stitchers and they want to transition? I've always wanted to try to get into the theater world, but yet it's harder now. There's 0 jobs for the people who are in the theater world. So do you have any advice? And most likely they're not in the union for the most part. So starting out or just where they happen to be in their life, working where they are.
Yeah. The advice I have now is very different than it would have been a year ago.
Yeah.
And oh God, I would say look to regional and look to educational theater. Because I actually never had like huge aspirations to work on Broadway. I just needed a job and Juilliard hired me, and that's why I moved to New York. Like it really was not. I really, really wanted to stay in California, but why? It's like it's not a theater town. I don't know what I was thinking. But as difficult as it is, because I used to always say, build up your resume in any way possible, but I've become I've gotten away from that because the exploitation of artists and of craftspeople and, being expected to work for free has really damaged in the long term a lot of where we're at now. So I wouldn't say, I guess I'd say build up your resume as much as possible while working for free as little as possible. It's like there's no framework for that now because there's nothing happening. So it's really hard to say like what is out there. But know what you want to do is a big thing. If you want to be a costume designer, but there are wardrobe jobs available, don't think that working in wardrobe is going to get you design jobs. That is They are two different departments. You really need to learn the distinction. Designers, that's the design department. They set the look. They decide what the costumes are going to look like. The wardrobe department maintains that look from opening night. Once everything sets on stage, that's the wardrobe department's job. And even moving forward through like the 17-year run of our show, I sort of run the wardrobe end of stock, and then I have a colleague, Amanda Whidden, who's the associate costume designer, who has also been with the show since the beginning. And she is Susan Hilferty's like eyes and ears on the production, does all the fittings, every new fitting, every new principle, every new fabric that's chosen from the design department. She does that. So like we're like the two ends of that in our office. And just know, and there's nothing wrong with, if you want to get your hands in, if you want to learn theater, how actually for aspiring designers in particular, I would advise taking some wardrobe work and learning how costumes should be made, learning how costumes should work on stage and not just what they look like, and getting that knowledge. But don't think that will get you design work. And don't go in as a wardrobe person thinking that you know more than the designer, because there's nothing more annoying as a wardrobe person working with another wardrobe person who thinks they're a designer and who doesn't care to learn the wardrobe parts of it. And as a wardrobe person, if what you want to do is what I do, what I've always wanted to do is be backstage, work on the show, work with the company, because I worked in costume shops for a long time too. And I really missed the family. I missed the theater itself. I missed the energy. I missed running the show. Expand your skill set as much as possible. Having a lot of things on your resume, knowing millinery, knowing how to do shoes, being a stitcher that is actually a stitcher and not just like I can stitch and then sit down at a sewing machine and be confused. Like really expanding your skill set in terms of what you can apply to wardrobe. That is the best way to get yourself in the door of any theater for anywhere. Or if a wardrobe supervisor is just looking for people to bring in, you want to bring the broadest set of skills. And even if all you want to do is dress, still have those skills, because there will be additional day work that can get you in the door to meet a supervisor, to get a paycheck, coming in and doing laundry and doing stitching calls, and then moving up into doing dressing work. But yeah, that is actually the biggest piece of advice I have for wardrobe people, is just like, even if you hate painting shoes, learn to do it. Because if you learn to do it, you can show up at a work call and say, oh, I can absolutely paint shoes for 4 hours. Then that'll move you forward.
And I will say this.
Speaking as someone who hates painting shoes.
I was going to say this, and doing laundry is totally underrated.
Yep.
That's a great call, and it's a great rate for that call.
Well, and laundry on the road, and that's another thing I really learned, because in New York, the wardrobe, the wardrobe setup is the same. We know our machines. We have 2 or 3 different wardrobe people. We have longer calls. We have an 8-hour call every day, 4 to 8-hour call. We know the actors, like the wardrobe people knows the names. It's just it's a much more laid back whole thing. On the road, like your wardrobe person in that theater is one of your most important people, because the calls are shorter. They're coming into a room full of dirty laundry they've never seen before, and it's a real skill to keep that organized and to follow those notes. And that was one of the biggest eye-opening things for me, is like a good laundry person on the road is amazing to watch, and a bad laundry person on the road can really mess up your day and just have things in the wrong place and have things not done on time. And because they're just, it's not necessarily their fault. They just aren't, they have to learn the system as quickly as everybody else does, where, when you're in a long running show, the system just sort of moves along with you.
Well, there you heard it, folks. To get your foot in the door, you've given them an array of opportunities. So. And also too, is that, the world keeps on changing. Mm-hmm. And, we hope that there's a place for everybody when we get back to it.
Yeah, for sure. Well, and, laundry may change too with COVID. I don't know. I mean, I don't think it will that much, because it's more about air than it is dirty laundry. Yeah. But I think there may be some more aspects of maybe the actors not do the laundry, but sort their laundry differently, or touch more of it, or I don't know what the answer is. I can't
tell you how many, speaking as a former laundry person for many shows, how many times I had to pull socks inside out.
Yeah. Oh yeah, that's always a thing.
It's always a thing.
Yeah, and you can always tell. Sometimes you can always tell it's always like the older guys, like the grown men in our show are always the ones who actually have their socks pulled the right way and everything's, turned, and it's like the kids that come in and they're just like these balls of socks. But yeah, I mean, I don't know what it's too hard at this point. It's too hard to wrap my brain around. I don't know what that's going to look like yet, but we'll see.
We'll see.
It will be an adventure.
It'll be an adventure, but it's great to talk about
Thank
it,
you,
and it's great to spend time with you and see you in person. Thanks so much.
At least eyes up.
Well, exactly, and hopefully in a few months we can maybe jettison these at times,
or at least in the park or something.
Yeah,
for sure.
Exactly. Well, Laurel, it's been such a pleasure talking with you.
Thank you for having me.
Sure thing. And are there places that people could keep up with you and anything you have upcoming, or just hear your opinions and your rah-rah for the arts?
I mean, if you drop my Twitter and my Instagram if you link those, because I can't, one of them has 3 E's and one of them has 2, and I never remember which has which, but I know they're in my bio. I'm Laurelina, but they're spelled differently on Instagram and Twitter. I kind of have curated my Twitter. I feel like it's actually a useful feed just for like general art support articles. But I mean, I think, and also me, tweeting about The Bachelor on occasion. I've had a stop and start Etsy situation going that I just like so many other, like the article in the Times this week. Tracy Letts and I have a lot in common. Neither one of us have a creative bone left in our bodies during quarantine, so I feel really good about that. But I am trying to get some embroidery work and handwork and stuff up for sale. I might do some masks again. You can always come visit Inwood Gourmet to visit me and some delicious cheese.
It's on Cooper Street, folks.
On Cooper Street, 95 Cooper Street. Yeah, I'm just sort of still kind of working my way through. It does feel like this last week has been, I feel like we've all felt a bit of a shift, the anniversary and also with the moving forward of the vaccines and everything, but I'm still like wrapping my brain around where we're at and where we're going to be.
Well, I think the best advice anybody can give themselves right now is that give yourself a break.
Yeah.
There's no pressure on you.
Except
just make it through.
Except that I think about I get through 5 hours at the cheese shop and I'm like, how am I going to do a 14-hour load-in day ever again in my life? I have no idea.
It's a lot different.
Oh, God,
and I bet your steps are quite lower than the time you're at the Fox Theater running downstairs and cross stage and back up again.
Yeah, the warmer weather has also been, I think that's also been, along with this sea change we're all feeling, we're all finally getting outside again, because we didn't have the most harsh winter ever, but just being stuck inside didn't help. No, it didn't. So. But hopefully sunny days. Hopefully sunny days, metaphorically and actually, are very much on our way for all of us. Yay! Well, again, listeners, we'll do our best to get some of those links up on our description of this episode. Sorry, I never know which was which. That's okay. We'll do our Scrabble and see which letters, which E's we can move around to make the right hashtags. Yeah. But thanks again, Laurel, for joining me on this Artist Spotlight episode of Inwood Artworks On Air. It's where we meet the musicians, filmmakers, writers, theater makers, and artists of all stripes who make their home here in Upper Manhattan. If you have a moment, please show some love for us right now by rating and reviewing this podcast on Apple Podcasts. It really helps. Many thanks to Dyckman Farmhouse Museum here in Inwood, New York City for hosting us, and to heightssites.com for local uptown promotional support. Be sure to follow us on social media at Inwood Artworks to keep up with all that we do, which includes the Inwood Film Festival, Filmworks Al Fresco, pop-up art galleries, live performances, and so much more. You can support On Air and all of our programming by making a tax-free donation at inwoodartworks.nyc/donate. Inwood Artworks On Air is made possible with funding from the NYC Company Foundation with support from Manhattan Borough President Gale Brewer and the NYSCA Electronic Media and Film Grant Program in partnership with Wave Farm Media Arts Assistance Fund and the support of Governor Andrew Cuomo and the New York State Legislature. From the top of Manhattan and the bottom of our hearts, thank you so much for joining us. This is Aaron Sims for Inwood Artworks On Air.